Hey, what is up? Oh my god, my microphone. Is it working? Yes, it is. Okay, sorry about that. I thought my microphone wasn't working. It took a little bit to respond. What is up, football fanatics? Thank you for joining me this week on this alternate football podcast. We are a couple days away from the NFL draft, which is kind of exciting. I'm very excited to see who takes what and what guys we might see and that might go undrafted or see a couple guys coming down to either the Canadian Football League or Arena Football League in a few years. But I'm not going to be covering the NFL draft this week. I talk about everything except the NFL. So let's get into it. One of the biggest things this week is the Canadian Football League Players Association is there's rumors that they might strike if they don't have a new CBA uh, bargained for by the start of the Canadian Football League season. Um, I really hope that doesn't happen, especially with the momentum. I think the CFL will have actually quite a bit of momentum um, after the failure of the Alliance of American Football League this year. I think a lot of people are going to be looking for football uh, because they kind of had a taste of it with the Alliance. And I do see a lot of articles still talking about the XFL and how that's coming back. So I think people will be out there keeping an eye out and excited about spring football and interested in the Canadian Football League, especially with the progress that they have done in the last couple years in the American market. Um, and also with the possibility of a 10th team coming in and the Atlantic Schooners, which I believe they've announced that that's going to be the actual name of the team, but hopefully they keep that. I love that name. Um, so I'm not 100% sure what the players want. I just hope that the league and the Players Association can get it figured out, and so they can start the regular season on time and hopefully have a little bit of training camp available. I think part of this was that the Players Association saw an opportunity with the Alliance and with the XFL starting up that they can put some more leverage on the league themselves, saying, "Hey, we have this other option. You're not the yes, we can't make it in the NFL, but just because you're the only other game in town, you're no longer the only game in town, if you see what I'm saying." So, so that's big news. Hopefully that doesn't come about. But other big news is the indoor football season is upon us. After this week, all three major indoor football leagues will be playing. The Arena Football League kicks off this season this weekend. So let me talk about some of the stuff going on with that league. I'm not going to break down the rosters. I don't know all the rosters and all the players that well. I'll learn more about them as the year comes along, and maybe next year I can do roster breakdowns once I learn more about them. But some of the obvious players that I remember, Malachi Jones from the Atlanta Legends is going back to Albany. They got Albany has Tommy Grady back. Dan Rodabaugh is back with the Soul in their awful uniforms. You have two new teams, Atlantic City and Columbus Destroyers. So up to 6 teams. There's only 3 games a week. 12-week season. Well, 13-week season. One bye. Both of them are close to the end of the season. I love the format. I love how they're structuring the league right now. So I'm very excited to have the Arena Football League beginning to kick off this week. In the first week, you have Washington, the Washington Valor going in to play the Baltimore Brigade. These are 2 of the Leonidas teams. then you have the Atlantic City Blackjacks going into Philly to play the Philadelphia Soul, the two Ron Jaworski teams. And you have the Columbus Destroyers going into Albany to play the Empire. I believe they're just Columbus is just league owned. I think that might be more Leonidas than Philadelphia. I can't remember exactly how the ownership works. It seems like they're going towards the one ownership style of ownership, like the MLS and the Alliance tried. And I think it works on this level of sports. So I hope they keep it up. Another big thing with the Arena Football League is that DraftKings, their partnership with DraftKings is starting to bear fruit in that they have developed a daily fantasy game specifically for arena football, where you don't necessarily have to pick up a quarterback, a running back, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. You could do multiple quarterbacks if you wanted, but it's similar to their captain mode that they have for the NFL, but it's for the entire weekend. I've already drafted my team for this weekend. I can pull up who I picked for my round of teams. I love how the logo is a actual arena football style. Like it has the A for it. So when I play DraftKings, I tend to play double ups. So that's 50-50. So essentially you only have to get in the top half to win. And it doesn't matter if you finish first or eighth or wherever. You don't get more points the higher up you go. I only play 50-50. So as long as I finish in the upper half, I get my money back. So my group this week, I have Tommy Grady as my captain. For my first flex, I have Malachi Jones. So I think Grady and Jones and Albany are going to be a fantastic pairing, and I will probably be riding them all year on DraftKings. I got Randy Hibbard, which I think he will do great in Atlantic City as a starting quarterback. I got Kendrick Ings, which I'm thinking if Randy Hibbard is good, Kendrick Ings will also be good. Colin Taylor also for Albany because Tommy Grady. And Brandon Collins, that was more just a throwaway because I was running out of roster bonuses. They only give you $50,000 to spend, and yeah, if you've played daily fantasy, this is a fairly similar thing. I got 2 quarterbacks and 4 wide receivers, which will be the main. You could do all quarterbacks if you wanted, if you think that every quarterback in the league is going to be the best, but finding all 6 quarterbacks, but worse, the being able to stay under the cap would be very difficult, if not impossible. I have a strong feeling about that. So go over to DraftKings. I think anyone who's an arena football fan should support playing on DraftKings, because this is one of the things that Alliance said they were going to be providing, and another thing that they didn't provide and lied to us about. So I would think any of us that are fans of arena football should go onto DraftKings, make an account, and use it. Show people what daily fantasy can mean to a smaller league, and show XFL and arena football what they can actually achieve by having this form of entertainment and why something like this can actually survive. But that's all that's going on in the Arena Football League. Let's talk about the games this week in the IFL, week 9 of the IFL. We finally figured out who the haves and has not are. So the IFL season is starting to get a little boring because we know who the good teams are. We know who the terrible teams are. So there's not as many interesting matchups throughout the week anymore. But this week had some fantastic games. So let's get on with the first game that I watched. The Bucks finally got their first win against the River Kings. So I am not sure if the Bucks looked better or the River Kings looked worse. I am not sure what's going on. The River Kings at the beginning of the year did not look as bad as they do now. The River Kings look terrible. And they finally the Bucks got a win, and yay Bucks, but boo River Kings. I don't know. They're both dumpster fire teams. The Bucks will probably won't win another game the rest of the year. I doubt the River Kings will either. I don't know. So let's move on to a fantastic game. The Iowa Barnstormers versus the Sioux City Storm, or Sioux Falls Storm, not Sioux City, Sioux Falls Storm. 36-32 on a final play. Let me talk about some of the stats. Freaking Parker Douglas, he kicked a 37-yard field goal. Shelby, with that juggling touchdown catch off one player and then caught it at the end of the game to win. I think though more that the Barnstormers lost this game more than the Storm won. The Barnstormers, I think overall look like the better team, but they went 3 of 8 on third downs. That is Apollo's in. Their offense just couldn't move the ball, and they just stalled. If they just move the ball better, I mean, now I'm starting to sound like John Madden. Well, if you just score more points than the other team, you would win. If you move the ball better, hold onto the football more, and get some touchdowns as opposed to field goal attempts, especially on third down under pressure situations. I don't know how much of that was home field advantage for the Storm, but they just didn't move the ball properly. So the Barnstormers have their first loss, just like the Bucks have their first win. We'll see if they can turn it around for the rest of the season. I'm very much looking forward to seeing these two teams play again. Obviously, these are very evenly matched teams, so if they meet in the playoffs or the championship game, it'll be very exciting. In the next game, the Sugar Skulls went into Quad City to play the Steam Wheelers. Only bright spot really for the Sugar Skulls, Gable kicked a 34-yard field goal, which is impressive in the indoor games. Anything over 30 yards is impressive. Quentin Pendroza, man, for the Steam Wheelers, he won the game for them. Quentin Pendroza was all over the place for the Steam Wheelers. He was fantastic. Let's move on. Don't have much time. The Green Bay Blizzard went into Nebraska. This was a fantastic game too. And the loss to the Nebraska Danger, 47-40, Nebraska Danger over the Green Bay Blizzard. Dent Jr. had the final touchdown, the final TD, and had the final touchdown for the Danger. And then it came down to the final play, just like the Sioux City, but this time instead of the Sioux Falls and the Barnstormers game, the defense for the Danger came up big. Brandon Rowe caught the interception in the end zone to keep the Blizzard from possibly going into overtime. So it was a fantastic game. Tommy Armstrong looked great. He went 3 for 16, 163 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's passing. And then he went 13, 13 rushes for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns running. And then, of course, Rowe, he had that fantastic interception of Footman at the end of the game. I'm very much looking forward to seeing what if the Danger can turn it around and get above 500 next week against the River Kings. I think they probably will, but we'll see. In the final, it was a Monday night game because none of these guys played on Easter Sunday, which is a good thing. The Rattlers went into San Diego and destroyed the Strike Force. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about Week 10. I don't have anything to say about the Rattlers Strike Force game. I did not watch it because I was tired after work and it was Rattlers versus the Strike Force. I knew exactly what was going to happen. Rattlers destroyed them. So moving on. Week 10. River Kings versus the Danger going into Nebraska. River Kings are not a good football team. I am surprised that they even have one win now, but maybe they'll turn it around. We'll see what they can do traveling into Nebraska and see what Tommy Armstrong can do to bring the Danger above 500. I think they will win the game. Now, if this game is very exciting. The Rattlers go into Sioux Falls to play the Storm, and after what the Storm showed they can do this week, we'll see how they do. This will be an exciting and fun game. We'll see if we have another knockout, dragout game like the first one between these two. Barnstormers go into Tucson and play the Sugar Skulls. Sugar Skulls will probably lose. Barnstormers will probably look good. This last game in the IFL is very interesting. The Quad City Steamwheelers go into Bismarck to play the Bucks. So Quad City has been kind of on a losing streak lately. They won last week against the Sugar Skulls, but they have not shown up as well as they have earlier on in the year. And now that the Bucks have a win and a win on the road, is that going to give them some more motivation to be able to come in and do something at home against Quad City? This one is going to be entertaining. The two games that mostly need to watch, Rattlers and Storm and Steamwheelers Bucks. Those are going to be the two most interesting games in the IFL this week. In the third league, the league that I'm starting to have the most questions about, the National Arena League. So this is my first year really following the National Arena League in depth. I knew about them because of the Jacksonville Sharks, but having the Jacksonville Sharks and now they added the Orlando Predators, that is really what brought me back in, is the fact that some of these classic arena football names are coming back into the indoor football landscape. So that got me excited. Now, the Predators do not look like the Predators of old. Honestly, they look like a terrible team. Yes, they're 1-1. I don't know if that just means the New York Streets are fantastic, but I don't think the Predators are really the Predators of old, like the old John Gruden, Jay Gruden eras. But honestly, the Streets, I watched the Streets Orlando game. I watched that intently. That venue for the Streets, I mean, come on, that is a terrible venue. I cannot imagine how. I mean, granted, yes, it'll be easy to fill, but they couldn't even fill that. So I'm a little worried that this league will not survive after this year, especially with the pressure that the Arena Football League seems to be putting on them. I do believe that that's what was happening with the first copyright strike against the Orlando game in week 1, why it wasn't on YouTube or anything for on-demand streaming. Maybe they merged with the Arena Football League. I would be so ecstatic if they added Jacksonville, Orlando, and the Storm to make a 9-team, and heck, throw in the Force or one of the other Southern, the Carolina Cobras. The Carolina Cobras, put them in. Carolina Cobras, Storm, Predators, Carolina Cobras. Throw those 4 in with the current 6 in the Arena Football League and have a 10-team league, round robin, northern teams and southern teams, and let them go at it. That would be a perfect format. So let's talk about the games in the National Arena League this week. The Jacksonville Sharks went into Columbus and destroyed the Lions 48-24. I shouldn't say destroyed. That's more what the Streets did to the Predators. But a 14-point game, that's a pretty large margin, even in arena football. The Lions don't look good. They're one of the bottom feeders. It's them and the Predators. Well, the Pirates don't look good either. Half the league looks good, half the league looks bad. That's part of the reason why I don't think this is going to be all that entertaining. It's one of the big problems with indoor football right now is all the good teams are split among all these different leagues, and you don't get to see good teams go up against other good teams. That's why the leagues need to get together and stop some of this stratification between the IFL, the National Arena League, and the Arena Football League. But anyways, the Predators went into New York, lost 70-31. We're talking about a 14-point spread. This is over double that. This is 39-point spread. Nearly 40. It's insane. The Streets look like a really good team. It's pretty much down to the Cobras, the Streets, and the Sharks for the championship for this year. We'll see if any of those teams survive. I think this league might die after this year. We'll see. The Massachusetts Pirates went into the Carolina and lost to the Cobras 22-50. I did not watch all this game. The graphics package for the game was just too atrocious. It was not entertaining to watch. I couldn't do it. And now there's so many other sports. I will not be able to watch every single game of all these leagues. It's starting to be a lot of games to watch, so I can't watch all of them. And then this week, there's only one game. I do plan on watching this. The Orlando Predators take on the Massachusetts Pirates. This will be entertaining. We'll see if either one of these teams can show that they're not in the dumpster, that the Predators can look better, and see if the Pirates can look better. Who will win? I can't say. I would honestly say the Predators, but I'm not super confident about that. I would not bet money on that. So, well, with that, that's everything that's going on in alternate football this week. If you would like to reach me on Gmail, just alternatefootball.podcast@gmail.com. Also follow me on Instagram, alternate_football_podcast. And just leave me a direct message on Instagram. Follow me on Instagram. I stream every Wednesday, getting you ready for the football, the weekend football leagues, anything except the NFL. Um, and thank you for joining me. Listen to me on iTunes. Have a good night.